Now, we all probably know our desk setup is somewhat important. If you've ever had a DSE assessment, for example, at work, you'll probably know that your screen should be about eye level, your knees should be about 90 degrees with your feet flat on the floor, elbow at 90 degrees. But is having the optimal desk setup actually the main thing we should be focusing on when it comes to our posture at work? Or is there something else we should be doing? Of course, how we sit at our desk is important, whether you are in the office or whether you're at home. But actually the more important element in terms of sitting is not how we sit, but how long we are sat for. There's some research come out recently that kind of says, sitting is the new smoking, and actually sitting is an independent risk factor. So similar to things like alcohol or smoking. Doesn't matter how much exercise you do, you can't undo the effects of smoking or drinking too much alcohol. And it's the same with sitting, it's an independent risk factor. If you sit for 8 hours, doing 1 hour of exercise in the evening isn't going to undo all of the problems or issues that 8 hours of sitting has caused, no matter whether you've been sat in a perfect position or not. You see, sitting like this is a completely natural position to be sat in, and is probably what most people would think of as a great sitting posture while at work, even though my screen is a little bit too low. But actually, sitting like this is actually another completely natural way to sit. And I say natural, even though I'm in a chair, it's a completely fine way to sit. But the issues arise when we're sat in any one position for a prolonged period of time. Any position that's pain-free is natural and is fine to be in. But even if I'm sat in this perfect position for 8 hours a day, I'm still going to come across a lot of issues. So what can we do to protect our posture or protect our MSK health and stop any of those joint aches, pains, any muscle pains that we might have from coming about? Well, there's a couple of things we can do. Of course, we can't get away from the fact that we need to sit down for prolonged periods throughout the day, whether we be at work, driving, sitting to eat a meal, whatever it may be. But what we can do is start to introduce some movement or different ways of sitting into our day to break up the positions we're in. So for example, you could sit in this position for a little bit. You could then sit potentially in that perfect position for a little bit as well. You could also potentially, if you're working from home, sit on the floor for a little bit, or go into the kitchen and use a table in there. The point is, we can't get away from the notion that we have to be sat for long periods to do a lot of our jobs. But changing your position and the way you sit as much as you possibly can, at least every hour, change sitting position every hour if you can, that's going to help combat any effects sitting in one position might have on our MSK and on our posture. If you're at work or around the office, you could also try things like standing desks, or if you're at home, even try sitting on a yoga ball for a little bit as well. And people always ask, is a yoga ball great to sit on? It is, but again, it's not great to sit on for 8 hours at a time. The next thing to try in order of priority is to then just take a break away from the desk as much as possible. So go for a walk outside, wherever it may be, whether you're in the office or at home. Taking breaks away from the desk and away from sitting altogether is really important too. And finally, once you've worked out some ways in which you can change your sitting position and you've started to add more walking and getting up and moving into your average day, the final thing you can do is to add some specific exercise, whether that's cycling, running, weightlifting, anything that you enjoy. Because remember, sitting is an independent risk factor, so we need to have some exercise in our routine for the benefits that provides: increased muscle mass, increased bone and mineral density, increased cardiovascular fitness, all of that stuff. But it's not going to undo all those hours we spend sat down in a chair. To change that, we need to change the amount we spend sat down in the chair, or change the way in which we sit as much as possible. And I'm back in from a break to crack on with a bit more work. But hopefully that makes sense. We need to change the position as much as possible that we're sat in. We then need to also take breaks away from the desk if we can. And then finally add in some specific exercise as well. Not because it's going to help cure the sitting down, but because it can provide lots of other benefits. But that's this week's video. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Vitality Coach Jonny, Head of Exercise and Physical Activity here at Vitality. Any questions, let us know down below. We'll be sure to answer them. But I'll see you guys in next week's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.